WTU team meeting. Don't let perfect be the enemy of progress. So this morning, I went to the gym, got my workout in, and on the way home, I got on the phone with my wife. We were discussing this podcast and started going through social media posts. And just, I would assume that it's probably the same for most of you when you're talking to your wife about something. There is nothing that you can do individually that's right. And honestly, they're right. She's almost always right about it. So she's telling me about how I should, on these posts for the podcast, I need to put hashtags. I need to put tag the people that are involved with it. I need to get involved with everything that is social media. But let me tell you something. I don't like social media. Never have really liked it. I've used it because of recruiting, because it was a tool. And now I'm entering into a world in which social media and podcasting and things are, um, that stuff's all relevant. And my background doesn't necessarily lean into it. It's outside of my comfort zone. So what I realized after looking at it, she even said, you need to use your phone rather than a computer in order to do a post. And I'm like, well, how do I get the picture that I have on the computer to my phone and it be in an area where I can find it on Facebook and then put it on a post? I go, I don't know what in the hell I'm doing. All I know is I need to get something out about the podcast. So I just put it up there. She's like, that's not right. That's not right. What I've really come down to realize is, and I realized it all right, within the last bit, I realized I'm not very good at this yet. I use the word yet there. So back in 2020, Chloe was just really starting to play softball. She had played t-ball for a few years, and we were just moving from Pennsylvania to Ohio. And, obviously my wife is a college softball player. All her sisters were. Some of the nieces are some college softball players or were college softball players. So softball's been pretty big. So obviously, Heather was very excited about getting Chloe involved with it. So she put us into working with this team that was called Shorty's Pizza Team. And it was third grade through seventh grade softball team. And we were doing it. It was it sounds like a big bunch of ages, but honestly, it was a bunch of very inexperienced girls out there. And Chloe was just starting to learn to pitch. And it was a situation where, all right, if you go out there and pitch and you end up walking three girls, then the coach has to come in and pitch. So that was what she was at that time. But we wanted to progress, and Heather got us into then coaching an Ohio Stingrays team that was going to be a 9U team at that time, but Chloe was going to be 8U, so she was a little bit younger than everybody else. But we were doing open tryouts. And when we were doing the open tryouts, one of the girls that came as a pitcher was definitely better than what Chloe was. And Chloe was watching her from the sideline, and she hit her spots for the most part. She could throw the ball. She was going to throw strikes. She was going to walk less people than she was going to anyone else would. I mean, so she was pretty good at it. And Chloe saw it, and as I could see as she was pitching to me, this girl, I could see my daughter over on the sideline, and I could see her becoming disheartened. When we got done, I went over to her. I said, "You all right?" She goes, "Well, I can't do what she does. I can't hit my spots. I can't do that." And all I kept thinking about whenever she said it was, okay, well, she's obviously done this longer than you have. She's put a little bit more time into it. I let her continue. And she said, I just can't do that yet. Well, not yet. She didn't say yet at that point in time. I said, I can't do it. I said, well, let's talk. So we went out and we sat by the softball fence out by center field. And she was almost in tears. And I said, now, so let's take that sentence. You can't hit your spots. You can't do that. I go, add the word yet to it. Change your mindset from being a girl that can't do something, because that means it's in your mind it's impossible, to I can't do that yet. Get into a growth mindset. And I look at this week and that conversation that I just had with my wife just less than an hour ago, and I go, I'm not very good at this podcasting thing yet. Now, why is that? And what's kind of put me in this position? Well, one, let's start out with when we were trying to get the podcast going initially. So I wanted to start a podcast at the start of this year. I wanted to launch it in January, and I had the first podcast already completely recorded, and it was one that talked a lot about Kurt Signetti and about production over potential. In fact, that's something that we'll probably revisit with this podcast at another time. But it was largely around the national championship that had just finished up, recruiting, and the transfer portal. So it was all very relevant topics for that time. Now, between the graphics not being ready, the launch not being ready, and somehow I recorded it on something where the graphic was the complete opposite. It was backwards. So if you were looking at the screen right now, it says WTU 12 Tempo Us. It would have had the U first, then the T and the W. So it was backwards, and we couldn't figure out how to flip it. We couldn't figure out how to flip it, and then it got put off. And life's busy. I mean, I'm coaching college football. She's running a consultant group or individual consulting group, and she's very busy with work. I'm very busy with work. So for us to get something out, it just kept getting put off. And then by the time we actually got ready to potentially launch that, it wasn't relevant anymore. So seeking perfection cost us relevance when it came to the podcast. And if you look at a lot of things in the podcasting world, they're time sensitive. So don't let perfection be the enemy of progress. So now look at this. So this was January. So we're sitting here and we're almost into July. So there's a 6-month difference between that. So what would have happened if I'd launched this in January? Well, 6 months of mistakes. First off, plain and simple, 6 months of mistakes, like putting a thumbnail. First off, a thumbnail. I thought that was a thing I almost cut off when I was fishing when I was about 10 years old. And my dad had me clean the first fish, and I cut into my finger and got. Then I grabbed my finger because it was squirting blood. Grabbed my thumb, and he goes, "What did you just do?" I go, "Well, I don't know." And he said, "What did you do?" And I took my hand off of my thumb, and the thumb started squirting blood. I had to go get stitches in my thumb. So that's what I thought a thumbnail was. I know what the hell I'm talking about. I got to put a thumbnail with some voice stuff behind it. I got to put it online. I got to put on a reel. What is a reel? What is a story? Like, those are all things that she's done, and I've watched her come back from Chloe's tournaments regularly, and I'll pull out some video clips, and she pours into them multiple hours in order to get the final piece perfected the way that she wants it and does it. And perfection is great. But a lot of times I don't function like that. I gotta go. I gotta take action. I gotta make mistakes. So when you make mistakes, I think you create the opportunity to learn, to grow, and get repetitions. So if we look at 6 months, there were 6 months of time that I missed making mistakes. I missed time for learning. I missed time for reps and lots of reps. I mean, I am a no-huddle football coach. So anyone who has coached with me or practiced with me, I want the damn reps. All right, ball on the ground. Put the ball on the ground and run the next rep. All right, we coach on the fly. Our hair's on fire. We're moving 100 miles an hour all the time. So we're learning how to process things and process mistakes on the run. So there were 6 months of growth over there. So I missed it. Well, good. That was a mistake. Now we got to get better. So those mistakes, good. Make them. Still Jocko Willink line there. Good. Something's screwed up. Good. Grow. All right. But those mistakes provide you data. Now, when I look at it and say, I'm not very good at podcasting yet. Well, why is that? All right. It's not my comfort zone. So if you show up on any random Saturday in January for the last 12 years for a recruiting visit on one of the programs that I've either been a head coach or I'm now an assistant coach with a program, and you show up there, that's my comfort zone. I get an opportunity to greet you. I get an opportunity to talk to you, figure out a little bit about you, something I can incorporate into a later talk that I'm going to do with the team. It is a flow state from the time they show up to where you actually get to addressing an audience. Put me in a group in front of 5 people in front of 1 person. Put me in a group in front of 500 people, 1,000 people. Hey, that's my comfort zone. Let's roll. There's a process to it. I'm going to find that person in the room that I can look at who's fired up, that I can get energy from, I get the juice from. I'm going to find the person in the room that's sitting back in their seat that is disengaged and acts like they don't want to be there. They want to be too cool for school at that point in time. I'm going to find them. I'm going to try to find a way to get them up on the front of their seat. I'm going to take those stories that I've built into that pre-talk time that you do when you're mingling. Hey, it's working. All right, that's work time for me. That's an opportunity for me to be able to get to know you and how we can present the vision of our program and how you can be an asset to building a championship program. So that's comfortable for me. I don't need notes. I've got 27 years of notes built into my brain on how to go ahead and attack that situation. Now, podcasting, no, not my comfort zone. There's nobody in front of me. There's nobody that I'm talking to directly. There's a computer screen that has a bunch of shit on it that I don't have a clue what is going on. When you get me with a group of real people, I can read their body language, energy. I find the hot buttons, engagement points. I can do those things and I can adapt on the fly. Now, when it comes to podcasting, it's a different area. There's no audience that becomes part of the presentation. So that microphone in that empty room that I'm sitting in right now, all it lets do is let's happen. Okay, I said let's do. Okay. Boom, that pops into your head. I go, that sounded stupid as hell. I got to start over. I got to restart. That is something that is different for me. There's not an audience that's directly in front of me. I am conditioned to engage with people, to grow from the conversations that I have with them. So when I look at my past and as a coach, I want to kind of funnel this into a story because I've talked a little bit about recruiting there, but one of the best recruiters that I've ever been around, as far as what he does on a daily basis. When I was an assistant at University of Wisconsin-Stevens Point, John Mish was the head coach. And John Mish, the godfather of UWSP football, the angry dog founder, okay, that guy. When I got there, we're recruiting. It's a Division III program. And he said, well, Division III, it's not like Division I. He goes, you recruit kids on campus every day. He goes, they're on campus every day. And he had a board behind his desk in his office. And you, as a coach, as an assistant coach, when you had recruits and visitors came in, you had to go in and you had to hang their name on those little hooks that was on this board behind there. And then every single day we had visits. So as an assistant coach, I'm like, look, I got to fill every one of these days during recruiting season. I got to put somebody there. So you're putting them there. But what I saw and learned from him was every day when we had a visitor, a lot of head coaches, and I've seen this at camps, like they'll have a camp. And I try to avoid doing this at a camp at all costs. But you'll get to a camp and a head coach will be there and all of his assistants are out running the camp and he kind of mills around and would like to say, well, yeah, I'm overseeing things. Reality is a lot of times they're just being lazy. They're not putting in the work that's there. And I do value being able to step back, be objective as a leader and see everything. It's important as a head coach. But it also should not be a crutch for you not to do the work. Mish's approach to recruiting was completely different. Every single day that we brought kids onto campus, he was the one that gave the tour. And I'm like, man, I'm thinking, Coach, you've been doing this as a head coach for 20 years. One of the assistants can take them out and show them buildings. The point wasn't showing buildings, though. The point was he's got quality time spent with the parents, the prospects. He was able to deliver the version of himself and the culture of the program, and he was able to hand deliver that while building that relationship. All right. He did it tour after tour, visitor after visitor, conversation after conversation, thousands of reps. And any of you that know Coach Mish, you know from those thousands and thousands of reps, he has a Rolodex of people that he knows in the Wisconsin area especially that is beyond comprehension. He's able to access the names, peoples, and situations and stories behind seems like damn near every single person involved with football and involved with higher education and the Wisconsin state system at any point in time. And we all know, hey, if Coach Mish calls you, you see Coach Mish pop up on your phone, he's there. Hey, you better carve out at least an hour of time because the man is a great conversationalist and he is going to keep you on there. So, but it's the repetitions that you take. Nobody really, I didn't think about it at the time, was the number of reps that he was getting to people, was how he built this. But that's how he built it. He built a dynasty of recruiting at the Division III level in the Wisconsin State system. There's no one better at it than him. Now that he's retired, I mean, from the last conversation I had with him, I think some of the coaches that are currently in there have some connections to him. We're all bringing him in for ideas on recruiting and want to talk to him about it. That's because he is a phenomenal resource and been a great mentor for me. But it's about repetitions. So take this another direction and look at it and get repetitions and the willingness to never let perfection stand in the way of progress. So as a play caller, I think it's something that I have been able to become extremely good at because of the flow, but it's because of the repetitions that I get. It's not an innate quality. I'll give you the why. So for 20 plus years, I have called plays, offensive plays, in game. For about half of that, maybe a little more than a decade, when we practice, we don't script the plays. The traditional process as a coach is you write a script, okay? And then you write an offensive script of these exact plays that you want to run on this hash, on this yard line. You put it all down on paper and you put it there. And then when you got to practice, the reality is you just read the play or hand it to the person who's signaling. They read the play and signal the play in, and then you run it. There's no real thought that's going into what you're calling and why, right, while you're out on the field. I moved away from that about 10 years ago. So now we script the situations. We manage the situations. We manage the flow. Something as simple as what hash are you on? If you do it by the script, you're left hash, maybe middle, or left middle, right hash, right hash. So you go through that process. Well, in a game, as a play caller, you have to be able to process the information that happens in front of you. The ball gets tackled on the left hash. Okay, so now you're on the left hash. You got to call the positional strength to the right side of it. You're changing your call is based upon the down and distance that happens on the fly. So by scripting situations, what we did is we created a process in which we have the situation. We're doing critical zone, okay, which for us would be the 30-yard line coming in. All right. So we start out on the left hash. We run a play. All right. So we gain in that play. We gain 2 yards. We end up on the opposite hash. So now I got to flip it, and I'm going through the play call or it's not a script, but our actual plan for what's our 2nd and 8 calls. And I'm doing it like I am in a game. I'm looking at it, and I'm taking the information. I'm making the call. But also, let's say that first play, the next play happens. We gain 7 yards. Okay, now we're 3rd and 1. Now I got to switch to a short yardage situation in my mind. So my play call has to be it. And then I also have got to look and say, okay, what personnel do I have out on the field at that point in time? And I got to do it in live time. So what you're doing with those repetitions is in a practice, we might run, we're fast paced. So the reality is we're probably going to have 90 plus plays that we call in every single practice. So that's 90 plus plays. I'm calling them on Mondays. I'm calling them on Tuesdays. I'm calling them on Wednesdays. I'm calling them on Thursdays. All right, so by the end of the week, we've called 360 plays within the game plan that we created for that upcoming opponent. So when you get into the game, you've called those. But you also have a Rolodex of situations that you've built not only in practice, but in games. So football's not predictable. All right, the goal and the preparation for me as a play caller is I'm training myself the same way that I'm training my players. Our players got to get repetitions. They got to make mistakes on the fly. They got to recognize things and be able to adapt and adjust. So as a play caller, it's the same idea for me. I'm teaching myself and I'm training myself through 360 extra repetitions during a week that other coaches aren't getting. Add in the games. Add in those 360 repetitions a week for 14 to 15, 16 weeks total in a season between preseason and postseason potentially. And then add in the spring ball, all right, 4 more weeks there, 360 calls more per week than anybody else. So what does that do? It creates a situation where it's natural to stay in flow and always be looking at key indicators. That creates a comfort zone for when shit gets hectic on Saturdays. So that's an area, again, that I've built a lot of confidence through preparation. Good reps and bad reps. And it didn't matter, it's just data. I said the results of yesterday, it drives you in a different direction. Now, I'll go back to the podcasting idea. Where I think this is going to be podcast number 4 probably when it comes out. 4, I looked it up earlier today. The very first podcast for Joe Rogan, his number 1 podcast was basically with his producer. He described it as bullshitting and figuring out where the mic was at. In fact, here before I started recording this, I had the mic cord tied around the headphones, and I was like, geez, I can't even get the damn equipment set up. All right, and then I'm going to try to record a podcast. But Joe Rogan, best podcaster out there, the most accomplished one that there is, his first episode, okay, that's all it was trying to figure shit out. Then I've listened to this podcast a few different times because of the relevance to me, but podcast 836 for him, I think, is the number. All right, it's with Louis Simmons. And when I listen to it, I love it because I know Louis, because it gives me a little bit of direct connection to it. I also can tell you that Joe Rogan probably got done with that podcast and said, Louis is a crazy son of a bitch. All right. And he wasn't wrong. I mean, I love the guy to death, but he's got a million different ideas, a million different things going on in his brain, one of the fastest moving brains that you would have ever seen. Right? So he had him in there. I imagine he got done and said, all right, man, he's a little bit nuts, but it was a cool podcast. But the quality, like when you listen to his podcast now, Joe Rogan's podcast now, versus the quality, the audio at that point in time, the audio with Louis in it, it sounded like they were recording probably somewhere in a garage or a warehouse. It's not as polished as what it is. But you don't build polish without building a foundation through mistakes. That's crown molding. Right? Eventually, this podcast will get to where we have some crown molding, but we got to build a foundation first. Now, there is progress and progress being made. I got to share a little tidbit. A couple weeks ago at Defiance, I go up there, and when I'm up there, at least once a week, we do a session where I clinic, and it's kind of a deeper dive clinic. I either do it with offensive staff. Sometimes it's full staff. A lot of times it's full staff that goes into it. When I got there this week, Coach Nickel had decided he was going to do something that I've done in our preseason meetings for upwards of 15 years. It's called Flip the Game. It's a flip the game exercise. So you look at your losses from the previous year, and you break the staff up offensively and defensively, and then you go into it and you deep dive, investigate. What are the things that we would need to do in order to flip the result of the game? And this is a process in which, when I first started doing it, you had to basically print out all of the different box scores and play-by-plays from each of the games, break them up within your staff. Each one of them's looking at them. They're going to take the information in, figure out, tabulate it, look at it, try to find, the problems that were in it. Was there too many turnovers? What's the turnover margin? What was the field position battle? So all of those things that you can find on a play-by-play. Then once you find all the things on the play-by-play, then you'll take that play-by-play and you'll figure out, hey, where were those instances in the film? And you go back and you look at those instances in the film and you figure out if it was a turnover. All right, was this a decision-based turnover? That was a quarterback decision-driven, coaching decision-driven, all right, player decision-driven? Was it a blown route? Was it a blown assignment? You figure out, is that something that can be corrected through coaching? Was it a physical thing? Did he fumble because we're not strong enough to take the hit and hold on to the ball? Or was it a ball security issue that was a fundamental issue? How do we take those things and build them into our practice plans for the upcoming year to flip that game in the same situation? That process in which we would do it, we usually would take each of the games, assign it at the start of preseason meetings, so like day one of preseason meetings. And I would assign it to the offensive and defensive staff. And if we had lost, let's say 4 games of the year, each side of the ball would take 2 games, and they would look into those 2 games. And then about day 7 or 8 of preseason meetings, when we got back together, we had other things that were going on during those 8 days. It's not just that flip the game, but about a week later, we would get together and we would go over those flip the game things. But it took multiple hours per game that you were going to do, multiple hours of film study and a lot of mind-numbing work on looking at the stats and play-by-plays from a game. So flip forward to this thing 2 weeks ago when he brought it in and said to do it. I go, all right. So I said, we basically got an hour to look at this and flip. And I go, well, let's use AI. So I took the offensive staff and went in. We put it in an AI engine, dumped all the information from the game into it. Said, what are the trends? What are the things you see? Put an emphasis on is ball security, field position, and it kicked out data. Now, AI don't know shit about football, to be totally honest with you. So the first iteration is always going to suck. All right. So you got to dig a little bit deeper, take like 2 or 3 dives into it. But that took about 10 minutes to get to something that made sense. So then we took that information and targeted, well, where are these? I think it was about 8 to 10 plays in the game. Where are these 8 to 10 plays? Then we jump on the huddle. We pull out the 8 to 10 plays that were there, looked at them, figured out what the answers were to it. And in a half hour, we were basically ready to go. Quick enough that when Coach Nickel came in, I kind of showed him the idea. And then we picked another game that we weren't going to do in the day. And I showed him through the process. And we were able to do all of that in 1 hour and to get us useful data. And the wild thing about it, the anti-tech guy here that can sit here and look at his screen right now and not know what in the hell any of it really means, I'm taught it. And the reason why I was able to teach it is because I put some reps into it and started figuring out some of those things. Because I was willing to suck at it first and realize I was not good at it yet. So when it comes to this podcasting plan and things that I feel like I have a pretty good set of stories, pretty good set of experience. I also have a little bit of a driving mission, and it sits in the back of my mind a lot of times. My wife, a lot of our friends, our network, we all went to a university, Urbana University, UU for life, that is now closed. And I have a lot of stories that connect. I got a lot of stories that connect to other things, whether it's Westside Barbell, whether it's going to be Tiffin University, where I was an assistant at, Wisconsin Stevens Point, Culver Stockton College, University of Louisville. I've been a lot of places, picked up a lot of experience during their 27 years. But that time at Urbana University for me as a player and as a coach was pretty damn important. So an ulterior motive of getting into this podcast is I want to keep some of that alive and build that. Build on that UU for life piece of it. So, but the skills that I have and the things that I've taken from my past have been through repetitions. It's where it's grown. Repetitions in recruiting, repetitions in coaching, repetitions in play calling, repetitions in leadership, repetitions with presenting to small groups, individuals, large groups, in different settings, whether that be in a clinic or whether that be as a director of leadership training for Germain Toyota at one point in time. That speaking part, that's all been good. Parenting, I've learned and grown a ton in parenting by same idea, getting repetitions and making mistakes. And none of it started with confidence. That very first time, there's a picture that gets shared on day, I think, 9 for Chloe. Picture that gets shared quite often. It's her sitting on a football and me holding it. You talk about fear of fumbling. Right? I was just trying to figure this shit out. So there's a lot of things in life that we're all trying to figure out. And podcasting is no different. The social media part of this is no different. Don't avoid progress for perfection. I have to be perfect. So maybe you're not as good at something that you want to be yet. That's not going to be forever. Put the reps in, put the work in. Don't ever let perfect be the enemy of progress.